here's the example. We are going to balance the reaction of titanium tetrachloride and water, react to form titanium dioxide and hydrogen chloride. So the first rule is, write the correct chemical formulas for all the reactants and the products. And then the second rule is, write the formulas of the reactants on the left of the reaction. And then write the formulas of the product on the right of the reaction arrow. So the formula for titanium tetrachloride is TiCl4 plus the water is H20, and then arrow the titanium dioxide, which is TiO2 plus hydrogen chloride, which is HCl. So this is the reactant side and this is the product side. Next, the third rule is, count the total number of atoms or ions of each element in the reactant and the total number of atoms or ions of each element in the product. A polyatomic ion that appears unchanged on both sides of the equation is counted as a single unit. Write all the elements in this equation. So the first element is Ti, the second element is Cl, the third element is H, and lastly, the fourth element is O. Next, count the total number of atoms or ions of each element. So when no subscript is written, it is assumed to be 1. So the subscript of Ti is only 1, the chlorine is 4, the hydrogen is 2, and the last one, the oxygen, is only 1. And then multiply the coefficient, which is 1. So when we see coefficient, it is a number that is written in front of a chemical formula in a chemical equation. When no coefficient is written, the coefficient is assumed to be 1. Now, we will multiply each element. First, 1 times 1 is 1, 4 times 1 is 4, 2 times 1 is 2, 1 times 1 is 1. Next, the product side. The subscript of Ti is 1, the Cl is 1, the H is 1, and the oxygen is 2. And then multiply the coefficient by 1. Now, we will multiply each element. So 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times 1 is 1, and lastly, 2 times 1 is 2. Next, the fourth rule. Balance the elements one at a time using coefficients. A coefficient is a small whole number that is written in front of a chemical formula in a chemical equation. When no coefficient is written, the coefficient is assumed to be 1. It is best to begin with elements other than hydrogen and oxygen. These elements often occur more than twice in equations. You must not attempt to balance the equation by changing subscript in chemical formulas. So as you can see here, the titanium is already balanced, but the chlorine, the hydrogen, and the oxygen are not balanced. So we need to balance the 3 elements. The first element that we need to balance is the Cl. To balance the chlorine, we need to think of a number that corresponds to the number of chlorine on the reactant side. So the only number is the number 4. The coefficient of hydrogen chloride on the product side will become 4. So the coefficient of chlorine will become 4, and also here in the hydrogen will become 4. Next, we will multiply the subscript and coefficient of Cl and also the hydrogen. So 1 times 4 is 4, 1 times 4 is 4. So now that the chlorine is balanced, next we need to balance the hydrogen. To balance the hydrogen, we need to think of a number that we put in the coefficient of H2O on the reactant side. So the only number that we multiply by the subscript of hydrogen is 2 to correspond to the number of hydrogen on the product side. So the coefficient of hydrogen will become 2 and the coefficient of oxygen will become 2. If we multiply the subscript and coefficient of hydrogen, it will become 4. Also here in oxygen, if we multiply the subscript and coefficient, it will become 2. The fifth rule, check each atom, ion, or polyatomic ion to be sure that the equation is correctly balanced. So as you can see here, the reactant and the product are all the same. Finally, the sixth rule, make sure that all of the coefficients are in the lowest possible whole number ratios. At least one of the coefficient must be a prime number. So the balanced chemical equation of TiCl4 plus H2O yield to TiO2 plus HCl is TiCl4 plus 2H2O yield to TiO2 plus 4HCl.